Hi, everybody. Frank Gladstone here for ASIFA-Hollywood. Today, we're going to talk to some of the creators of the new TV show. It's in the first season now, M.O.D.O.K. And I'm going to start by a slight introduction. Jordan Blum, or Blum, Jordan, which is it?
Blum.
Blum. So, writer, producer, multiple shows, American Dad, worked on American Dad for a long time. Community for NBC.
Mm-hmm.
And now here at Stupid Buddy working on this crazy show.
Getting to play in the Marvel Sandbox, loving it.
There you are. I'm going to ask a little bit about the Marvel Sandbox in a minute, but first I'm going to go to Alex Kamer. Hi, Alex.
Hi.
You're not an Angelino by native, right? You came from some other community.
Yeah, I was born in New York and lived a lot of places when I was a kid, and I came out here in 2005.
Were you a military brat?
No.
Just moving around a lot.
Just restless parents.
Trying to keep away from the landlord, right?
Yeah, on the run.
Yeah, so and came out here in 2005, and then we're stop frame right away, right? You were working stop motion.
Yeah, I was just kind of pursuing animation, and I found an internship at Shadow Machine, which was doing Robot Chicken.
Right.
And the rest is history.
Right. And you've been at Stupid Buddy for about 10 years.
Yeah, since 2012.
There you go. And worked on a lot of stuff, including Thunderstruck and Super Mansion and all the projects, I guess, there.
A lot of them, yeah.
A lot of them. And you co-directed this with Eric. It was the other. It's like, are you guys the co-directors or separate directors? Eric, I'm going to go to you next. This is great. You guys probably don't know this. Somebody wrote in Eric's bio,
oh, geez.
Pioneer in the world of animation, including the change in creating groundbreaking original content for all forms of media.
Wow.
I know.
It's so weird how Eric always made us call him a pioneer. Like we couldn't just call him by name.
No, don't call me Eric Towner. Call me Eric Pioneer Towner, Jordan, or I'm not going to answer you.
Yeah.
Now you were in early with the Buddy System Studios, right?
Yeah. Co-founder of Buddy System Studios back in 2008. So our humble beginnings were doing some animation out of a garage, and our old 72 Winnebago, that was our first office.
Which is still in the studio now. At least the last time I was there, it was still there.
Yeah, it's moved inside, and my partner Harv is actually office there now as he's directing a show on the stages.
Oh, I figured maybe he was living in there because you could.
He very well could be. There's like a 50% chance.
So you were there with Harvatine the Fourth, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you met up with some other reprobates, including Seth, Matt, and they had Stupid Monkey, right?
So exactly.
So it became Stupid Buddy, and then since then. So you've worked on a lot of stuff. You've got all of you have awards. Worked on Robot Chicken and additional credits for Super Mansion. The one that I'm not sure about is Blark and Son.
Oh, Blark and Son is a Comedy Central live action puppet show. It's like these weird kind of creepy silicone puppets.
Oh, I know that one. Yeah. Okay, I just didn't put the name.
Very funny show. Very weird.
Yeah, very weird. And Thunderstruck and so forth. And you executive produced Crossing Swords, which I think Zoe worked on. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep. All seasons.
Yeah. He's currently working on it.
Oh, that's
yes.
Right.
Yep.
And then Zoe, you're born in Michigan. Whereabouts in Michigan? I have people there.
I was born in Pontiac, actually, outside of Detroit, but I lived around a lot of the southern part of Michigan and went to college in Detroit as well before moving out here.
Where did you go to college?
College for Creative Studies.
Oh,
if you've heard of it. And it's I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, did you take animation there? Or was it general?
Yep, animation. It's a very specialized art school. It's mostly known for automotive design, obviously Detroit, but it has a really nice animation program and fine arts program, but I stuck mostly in the animation side of things. Of course, I can't design cars, so
except animation cars, maybe.
Yeah, maybe I could certainly animate a car.
So you came out here. You worked mostly for Stupid Buddy. You've worked for some of the other guys too, Screen Novelties and the Chiodos and stuff like that, but mostly Stupid Buddy and all stop frame, which must be your love. We're going to talk
Yes,
about that a little bit too. And most recently, besides Crossing Swords on M.O.D.O.K.
that's right. Yep.
So there you go. You lead animator on Crossing Swords, it says here.
Sure am. Yep. My first time doing it too. It's going pretty good, I'd say.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
When they make you a lead, you have to often, in all animation, you have to stop doing the animation because you're correcting everybody else or worrying about, getting stuff done. Is that
Well, what's interesting about it is that being a lead animator here, I actually am still definitely I'm doing a little of both. It's a little bit of a mix of being a leadership role, but still animating. So it's been interesting finding that good common ground of helping other people, but also getting my own work done.
Right. Well, good. Don't let her stop doing animation, guys, when she's working with you. That's the thing about leads oftentimes, and you guys know this, you get kicked upstairs and you can't do the stuff you came to do anymore.
That's right.
Yeah.
And you don't get that anymore.
Yeah. So the first thing is, I didn't know who M.O.D.O.K was. When I heard I was going to do this Q&A, I looked him up. And at first I watched the shows. I said, oh, he's a comic character. I don't mean comic books. I mean, he's a funny guy, right? He's a funny, weird, I want to take over the world guy, but he's funny. And then I went and looked up the Marvel Universe, and he's not that funny. In the he was this kind of bad guy. He had his problem was, of course, he was a real nice human that turned into this really bad guy. So there's always some kind of character flaw in Marvel characters, which is a good thing. So how did this come about? How did M.O.D.O.K become this star of it still kind of has these dark moments and a fair amount of blood and stuff, but how did he become, it's a little self-deprecating. It's a little making fun of the genre. How did that happen?
Well, I've been a comic book fan since I was like 2 years old. My parents were always giving them to me. My dad learned to speak English through comic books and read. So it's always been there as a part of my life. And I've always been drawn to, I think, the weirdos of the Marvel Universe or the underdogs. And I think M.O.D.O.K is that for sure. He was created by, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby in the 60s. And he's this egomaniacal supervillain, hell-bent on taking over the world. But he's kind of self-aware that he's not an A-list villain, and it drives him crazy. His own self-doubts and mixed with his ego kind of always bring him down and always kind of stop him from fulfilling his goals. So throughout, the history of the character in the comics, he's been portrayed as a legitimate menace and threat. He's like a big bad in the current Avengers video game, but also because of his design, which is so amazing, from Jack Kirby, that he's this giant floating head with little baby arms and legs, screaming and mind blasting everything in front of him. He's been taken into, some comedic areas here and there in the comics. And when Patton and I met with Marvel, they had a few characters they were interested in us developing, but M.O.D.O.K has kind of always stuck with me because of that design and because of he's that very arch supervillain, and the idea of exploring, what is it like to run an evil organization like AIM, and is it this like frustrating bureaucracy where you have to worry about people's dental and HR, and then the same with, well, where does this guy go at night? After he leaves that Captain America panel, does he just go home, to a family? So asking these kind of questions led us to develop this sort of sitcom around this character.
Yeah, I mean, he had a midlife crisis. He's in the middle of family issues, and his daughter's 14 or 15 and having a hard time, and she wants to be a supervillain too. And I mean, it's really interesting. Where does he go now? There's nothing in the
dropped out for a second,
Marvel stuff. Yeah, there's nothing in the old Marvel stuff that has him going home and having a dinner and watching some television. But there is in your show, and also the issue of his companies being subsumed by somebody else, and he seems to be a villain too. the young whippersnapper who's working for the other company, whose name just went out of my head.
Austin.
Yeah, Hudson, right. So what? How is Marvel take? What are they thinking? Are they liking it? Are they okay with it? Did they know that you were going to handle it this way from the get-go, or has it evolved?
Jordan, you there?
Oh yeah. Oh, wait a minute. I may have lost my sound. Hold on. I wonder why.
I'm like freezing.
Can hear you now, Jordan.
Jordan's at M.O.D.O.K's apartment where he's living now, and his
I'm gonna try moving here.
You guys want to try and answer?
I'm getting closer to the internet. There we go.
Oh yeah.
Am I in?
So I don't know if you heard, Jordan. I was asking how Marvel themselves. I mean, it's a big, gigantic, franchise-heavy corporation now, and how are they doing with this? Are they okay? Did they know at the beginning? Oh gosh, we lost something. Do they know that he's did they know it was going to be a kind of a sitcom type version of this when you talked with them?
Yeah, they they wanted to develop a lot of these properties into kind of comedic areas. They had talked about characters that were inherently comedic, like Howard the Duck. But I think the idea of M.O.D.O.K and kind of building a world around him and putting him through this midlife crisis, I think they saw the comedy in it immediately, knowing the character, knowing the design, knowing again, how big of a voice he is. And it was a fun way to kind of skewer the comics, but also be a love letter to them as well. So I think they trusted us with the character, knowing how much we loved him and loved the world, that we weren't going to break the toys, but we could bend them a little bit.
Yeah, I would think. So you, Alex and Eric, you are the co-directors. As I was reading it, you're working on all the shows together. Is that correct? Or how are you breaking up your duties on this show?
We worked on all the episodes together, and there were just times where we could cover certain things for each other, and we just sort of shared a brain and worked closely with Jordan.
Yeah, as much of a hive mind as we could possibly come up with. There's just so much going on at any moment during these shows that being able to divide and conquer buddy system style is always a good thing. So it was a super fun experience. So
stupid buddy system. So now Patton Oswalt has does he have a lot to say now? Is he actively involved in writing, and is he actively involved in? I know he's doing the voice, which is pretty terrific, by the way.
Yeah, he and I developed the whole show together and sold it and co-wrote the pilot, and then he was in the room as much as he could be and wrote an episode, and very much was kind of advising and adding and pitching. It was a real amazing writers' room we had, and having Patton be a part of it was incredible, because you have M.O.D.O.K there. You can test the lines out, You're like, I don't know, would M.O.D.O.K say this? And he just says it. He's right there. So it was so great to have him be a part of the writer's room as well. And then he's one of the, great, I think, voice actors out there. And he really knew the character and brought that to the records.
So speaking of the record,
there's a lot of M.O.D.O.K talking. He carried a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Who was in charge of doing the who was directing the recording, the voice recording?
We were all in it for most of it, and we tried to get the actors in together. It was very hard to schedule that. I know some shows can do it, but I think we picked episodes or moments where we could get, let's say, Ben Schwartz and Patton in there for the episode that was very heavy with Ben's character, so they could really riff and play off each other. Or in the finale, we knew this emotional moment had to play so real that we got Patton and Amy in to record that. So we tried to pick our moments, because it's very hard to schedule that. But the vocal talent on this show was unbelievable. I couldn't believe everyone said yes. We got our first choices for every character.
Well, not only that, your guest stars, so to speak, or the people that are in one or two episodes, are some big names in Hollywood. live, what I call face actors, people who are normally doing live shows. And I, you know, and I read the list. It was like, really? All these guys came in. Did they love the character? Did they love the idea? Did they just love animation? Did they want to work in their pajamas? I mean, what?
Well, everyone wants to work in their pajamas, but I think it was a mixture of, you know, some were relationships Patton had, say like John Hamm to get him to play Iron Man. Others, it was just like, hey, you know who'd be great in this role? Whoopi Goldberg. You know, would she say yes to this? Well, there's only one way to find out. And then she did. And she's like, no one asked me to do these kinds of things. Like everyone, a lot of these actors who, you know, we consider to be kind of serious actors like John, you know, they love playing and getting in the booth and doing this. So every single person was just so game to have fun and get silly and you know, explore this world.
Yeah, I get it. Now, this is a big question, and I've been doing a fair amount of these, and this question comes up all the time, so I'm going to ask it. It's COVID. It's stop frame. Generally speaking, stop motion. Generally speaking, you need to be on set to make stop motion animation. You need to be there to move the characters around frame by frame. It's COVID. You're home. How did that work? I'm going to ask you, Zoe, first, because you were animating on it. How did you do that?
So it started off, of course, when we all, you know, we actually shut down the studio for a fair amount of time, right? Like 4 months or something like that. When we came back, it was a very small crew, and it was so awkward and quiet and strange. And we were all kind of afraid of each other and kind of were like keeping as much away from each other as humanly possible. But luckily, as time went on and we were able to adjust, we were getting testing at the studio at least once a week. We all wore masks, and we limited how many people are in the stages. So yeah, it was one of those things where we ended up becoming, for some reason, essential workers. Which didn't feel very essential at all, but we made it work one way or another, just keeping our distance from each other. And we adapted crazy fast. Really surprising, honestly. Yeah.
The animations, rather traditional or CG, that happened quick because everybody worked from home anyway. And you know, but for stop frame, I was going, so you did get back pretty early. So yeah, but and then I would suspect, you know, to try and get deadlines done, you had to work pretty quick.
Oh yeah. I feel like they were pretty flexible, but yeah. Certainly threw a wrench in a lot of our plans. So, you know.
I noticed that I was looking carefully at the character design and how the characters are built. You know, and Stupid Buddy's kind of famous for the stick-on mouths in other shows. Now this time it's not that. This time the models seem to be more complex, and there's replacement parts. Is that correct?
Yes.
So yeah, the mouth system on M.O.D.O.K. I mean, that character. Alex, you could probably speak more about the puppet, but it ended up being one of the most thoroughly thought through puppets that we've had, because he did have replacement mouths, and he's also never on the ground. Usually you'll, you know, tie the puppet to the ground, but he's a constantly, you know, he's a giant floating head. So yeah, he had some challenges for sure.
Now, were you doing, how are you, Alex, how are you handling were you just disguising the pipe that holds him up by the camera angles, or were you doing compositing? How were you or erasing the armature that held him in the air? How did you handle all of that?
All of the above, actually. Like whenever we could just hide the rigging with a camera angle or with like something in front of him, we would do that. But there was many cases where it just had to be, you know, comped out, because it's like you need a wide shot, or you need him to go across the screen or whatever. So we kind of just attacked each shot, you know, circumstantially.
How big was the crew? You said the crew was pretty small, Zoe, during the, you know,
starting back off, and then eventually we were able to sort of pick back up to a pretty normal amount of people. Like when we all came back, it was basically like Alex, 3 animators, like maybe 1 or 2 set dressers or something like that. But then eventually it became, what was it, like 30? Is that, I feel like that's too many. I don't remember exactly, but
I don't know the exact number, but we eventually ramped up to a full crew, particularly since, you know, we didn't really know what would happen COVID wise when we started back. So we started as slowly and cautiously as we could. And we sort of gradually applied more, you know, gradually normalized more. And, you know, everything the studio did to keep us safe was great. But I think I really commend the crew themselves, because I think that everyone took it seriously and did not mess around outside of work. You know, everyone sort of was like, we need to buckle down and get this done and keep each other safe. And that was sort of the attitude around the crew. And I think that's what got us through it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I agree with that.
I would think so. You know, now this is all done locally. You didn't job anything out to any other stop frame groups or anything like that, or did you?
No, made purely in Burbank, California. Beautiful Burbank.
There you go. Beautiful downtown Burbank. That's pretty great. That's pretty great. So now, as far as voice was going, it is COVID. Were the voices being done when you could from people's living rooms? I mean, were you recording that way?
We got them done before COVID, fortunately.
Oh, well, that's pretty damn fortunate, isn't it?
Yeah. That was one less thing to worry about.
We got pretty lucky there, but I mean, yeah, you know, COVID happened pretty much right in the middle of production. Right. So it was definitely disruptive, but we're hoping that when people watch the show, they would never guess that a pandemic happened right in the middle of it.
I've done two, feature interviews lately, and one of them, they were doing their first shots when it went to COVID, and it's a major studio, and if you look at the film or at the feature, you wouldn't know, and audiences aren't supposed to know. They're not supposed to realize, unless they're giant animation nerds like all of us, what's going on behind the scenes. But it's good to know that happened.
I mean, during the lockdown, we were able to get a lot of work done too, actually. Like VFX moved forward and puppet fabricators kept working. So we were able to do a lot of remote work during the huge lockdown. We just couldn't shoot until.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. You're getting all the puppets fine-tuned.
Yeah, a lot of fabrication was still happening. Sets were still being, we had some pop-up shops around town where sets were able to be built, safely from people's homes. And same with VFX and editorial, like, any other kind of animation was able to be done remotely, which was great.
What other? I was gonna say, if I remember correctly, when we started, M.O.D.O.K was the hardest puppet to build because he's like a giant Swiss Army knife, and there's a lot of R&D that went into him. Yeah. So we were shooting around him at the beginning because they had to make like 30 M.O.D.O.K. Yeah. So it gave them a chance, I think, to catch up, because we were waiting on the M.O.D.O.Ks a lot of times to be done, because he's very time consuming to make.
Yeah, in the beginning, we just had like a stand-in M.O.D.O.K that we moved from stage to stage for like over the shoulders and stuff. We just didn't have enough of him at first.
M.O.D.O.K stunt puppet, I guess, or the stand-in. M.O.D.O.K stand-in. Yeah, that's pretty great. It's pretty great. Yeah, and I was carefully watching the puppets. I know a little bit about those, and it was really interesting. At first, I said, "How they can't be doing replacement? They're not, Oh yeah, I guess they are." And so, is he magnetized inside the head, the skull, that kind of thing?
Yep.
Yeah. M.O.D.O.K was full replacements, and then pretty much all of the other characters, our VFX team came up with an approach that it was able to be done in post, but still retain like the dimensionality and the texture that you would actually get from a physical replacement mouth. So they came up with some really innovative stuff that I think works pretty well.
Well, I was wondering about that, because say the human characters like Jody, for instance, it's not a paste-on mouth. It looks like and I'm going, so that was that done? How did you handle that? I mean, it looks like a actual, articulated head. So,
good. That means it worked.
Yeah.
That's all you need to know, Frank.
Okay. That's fine.
Yes, is top secret. No. It was again like some really great stuff that they came up with. Actually taking some of the 3D models, like a lot of our process starts as 3D models that get printed. And so we just at some point found a fork in the road where we took more of that into post instead of having to be built and shot on set. So we could, spend some more time on other things while we're on set. And so it's just,
Shout out to our VFX team, who had, from what my understanding, just as many VFX shots as a Marvel movie, like per episode. I feel like it was a lot on their end, and they were able to turn it around. It was incredible.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
that's
they
Mike
made
Miller
they
and
saved a lot.
his team. Yeah, they did a great job.
But the
And-
CG mouths means that, like, when Zoe was animating, her characters mostly didn't have a mouth, which is, Zoe, what's your take on that? How was that, like, not working?
Yeah, I was about to say it was kind of hard sometimes, because so much, as we all know now, wearing masks for the last year, so much emotion comes from your facial expression, your mouth,
Right.
and we just had these tracker stickers that just look like little smug, weird little straight lines. So just always looked like they had these weird little like straight mouths. So it was very difficult to figure out how to emote them correctly. And you're just kind of hoping that when the mouth goes on there, it's exactly how you were sort of pictured in your head.
Yeah.
For the most part, it was, I guess. But yeah, it was definitely a challenge animation wise, for sure.
So, I mean, you knew what the track was and everything, so you were kind of pantomiming the shot without speaking. I mean, you knew where the cues were when they would say a word, but
Exactly.
it was pantomime stop frame. That's pretty good. I like that.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, it'd be difficult to not have the audio there to figure out, but definitely not having those mouths was a limitation, but one that we got used to over time.
Yeah. You think you'll use that technique? I know for when M.O.D.O.K goes to a second season, you'll probably do the same thing. But how about some of the other shows? Is this a technology, this improvement, or I don't know if you consider it improvement, this new wrinkle would be something you'd want to do again on other shows?
Yeah, I think it was, I mean, I don't know, it depends on the show. Like every project is so different that, something like Robot Chicken, the stickers look funny and silly and dumb and it works.
Yeah.
So it would have to be certainly the right project, but it's always cool advancing the technology and the craft and embracing that stuff where we can.
Well, here's the general philosophy question. And I get this a lot from students who want to be in stop frame and so forth, is why stop frame? And I'm going to ask you, because you all work in it. Jordan, this is your probably first stop motion project, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So why stop frame? What do you?
Well, for me, we got tests all over town for this project, and funny enough, it came down to Stupid Buddy versus Stupid Buddy, because they did a 2D test and a stop motion test, and the stop motion was so cool because the first thing that really blew me away was the handheld element to it. Made it so kind of cinematic and verite, which lent itself to the story, because we're getting a behind the scenes look at what it's like to be a supervillain, whether he's at work or at home.
Right.
And I loved how cinematic it was. And, we were really like paying homage to the Jack Kirby artwork, which is so three-dimensional and really pops off the page, that it felt like we were capturing that, I think, in this style. And it was just so unique and, again, so polished. Like, Robot Chicken is supposed to look like toys, and this felt very different. This felt like these people were inhabiting the space, and you had no idea if they were 6 feet tall or tiny, puppets. And I think that element to it just blew me away, and it felt like, again, I hadn't seen anything like this on TV.
Why stop frame, you guys? Why do you work in stop frame? It's a great question.
I kind of echoing Jordan a little bit. I'm really drawn to it because of how cinematic and dynamic you can make it look, since you're dealing with 3D space and 3D objects and like real light and real lenses. I come from such a love of like cinema in general that world gels really well with stop motion animation.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also think it's really nice because it's like a renewing of a really old animation form. So I feel like maybe it's not for everybody, but for somebody who really can respect and enjoy, beautiful, interesting animation that doesn't look like something that you see every day, stop motion's a really, really cool thing to have. Places are, it's almost like a evolving technology in itself, which I think is really interesting. Like 3D, you know, is always evolving, always getting better. And I think stop motion that same way has the potential to always continue to, you know, get more and more interesting as the years go on. So
It is the oldest, I think, or
yeah, exactly.
with the oldest film animation. There's a guy that hardly any stop motion guys know, named Alexander Shariev. I bet you he started it in 1904.
Wow.
I know.
That was that was a stop motion animator?
He was a ballet guy. He worked for the Marlinsky Ballet in St. Petersburg, Russia, and he did it as instructions for his students as well as to entertain his family. No one else ever saw these films.
Huh.
So,
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. And he may have been the very first film animator. He may have been the very first one, even before Blackton, who also did stop frame films. But they were the fill up the wine glass, you know.
Yeah.
At the bread. Anyway, so Eric, you've been working in it a long time. Why do you gravitate?
I've always loved it since I was a kid. Like I used to animate my toys when I was a kid, and then, you know, I was, you know, coming more from like a live action filmmaking background before I got into stop motion in Los Angeles. And I love it, the tactile nature of it. I love that you're dealing with lenses and real lights. And I just feel like there's still so much that hasn't been done yet in stop motion. I think it comes with some preconceptions of, you know, what people think they're going to get. But really, I feel like there's just still so much to explore, especially with new technologies and kind of embracing that, but also embracing what's kind of pure about the craft, where you can actually see the love and the labor that goes into, you know, kind of handcrafting these worlds. So yeah, I don't know. I just love it.
So M.O.D.O.K seems to be gaining an audience, if I'm correct. And it looks to me like, I don't know when Hulu gives you a green light for a second season. Are you all up for that if it happens, or when it happens?
Bring it on.
More than up for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be amazing.
I would think so. And my guess, and I don't have any insight into that, but it seems to me, from the craft of it and the funniness of the humor of it, you know, it's not, yeah, you know, Marvel has humor in it. It always does, but this is really laugh out loud funny.
Oh, thank you.
So at least for me, it was. You know, I ran down and watched a few of them and said, I have no idea. And then I started laughing out loud, going, "This is pretty funny," and a little subversive, which is a good thing. So, what do you think's next? What's next for? If M.O.D.O.K hopefully will be the next thing. Anything else on the plate that you can talk about?
A lot of cool things you loved at one time in your life. I'm helping bring back, but I can't say which ones.
Okay, so for me that would be like Froggy the Gremlin and the Rough and Ready show, but that's a whole.
You know what? I can't say. I can't reveal that. I'm sorry.
No, you would, and it wouldn't be those anyway. So, or there was a show called Winky Dink. You guys you're too young, where you actually drew on the TV set.
Oh, that's awesome. They give you like a translucent, like
they gave you a plastic and you put it up on it stuck to the TV. And then
I was about to say my mom wouldn't like that if I just drew on the TV. I don't think that makes more sense. Yeah.
The plastic, who cares? Because the crayon would stick to the TV too. And you feel like, you know, he needs to be able to have a bridge to get from here to here, you know, draw a bridge. Anyway, it's been a real pleasure talking to you. I really enjoy it. I love the stop frame on it, and it's funny. It's got funny, you know, erudite scripts. I think if Stan Lee would see it, he would think it was great.
That's a great compliment. Well, I'm so grateful that I got to work with this team and their talents. And it was, as an outsider, you know, coming into stop mo, it was fascinating to see every step and the craftsmanship that goes in, from making the costumes to the sets to animating, you know, the tiniest moments and making them feel so real. Again, I was always a fan and became even more so by just watching the process and being educated by these amazing talents.
You've been bit, Jordan. You've been bit.
I have. Yeah, I love it.
Good. Well, thanks everybody. I appreciate it very much. Thanks, Alex, Zoe, Eric, and Jordan for sticking with ASIFA here. We'll be up on our channel very quickly, and this has been a great time to talk with you. Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Great.
Yeah, thank you for highlighting us. Thank you.
That's okay. See ya.